I would also like to give you a general overview of objects in JavaScript. Objects in JavaScript are collections of properties, or the properties are also referred to as keys. And then the properties or the keys have values in the object. If a property value is a function, then it is called a method. So same old function is just in the object setting. It is referred to as a method. The easiest way of picturing objects is thinking of real life objects. For example, a car. Well, it is an object, correct? It has some properties, for example, color, type, model, and then it also has methods. If you have a good enough car, it probably can drive, it can stop, and maybe even accelerate. To get some practice, why don't we create a person object? So, of course, I'm not going to be particularly original, but I think person object will do its job. And we start by creating a variable. In my case, of course, it is going to be a person. And then the syntax is following, where again we have assignment and of course the curly braces. That's how we create objects in JavaScript. At least that is the most popular way. And then we would need to set up the properties. So I go with some kind of property name, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that person has the name. Then colon, again, that is the syntax. And then, of course, since it is a name, I'm implying that it is going to be a string. But essentially, you just follow the same rules and patterns. So if you have a string, then of course you have quotation marks. If you're going to have a number, you just type in a number. If you're going to have a Boolean, then of course you type in the Boolean. And I'm going to go with John, then a last name. I'm going to set as Peters. And this is important where in between the properties or keys, you must have a comma. So similarly how in the array, we had a comma in between the items, same goes in the object, where I have one property and then one value. And if I'm adding more, then I need to add a comma. So if that next property wouldn't be there, then I'm good to go. I don't need to add it, but if there is following property, then make sure that you have a comma. Let's try out the numbers. So I'm going to go with age property, and I'm going to set this equal to 40. And notice how I'm getting right away an error because I didn't add the comma, just like I said before. And then in here, I would like to practice on the Boolean, so education. And poor old John Peters is going to have no education. However, he is going to be married. So we're going to go with married, and then this is going to be the opposite. So this is going to be the Boolean of true. Now, if you're still iffy on Booleans, don't worry. We have the conditional statements coming up where we're going to resolve all your questions. And after that, I would want to try out the array. So I'm going to say siblings property, and that is going to be my array. As you can see, again, same rules, same syntax and all that. And we're just going to say that not Annie, Anna, then maybe Susan. And also he has a brother by the name of Peter. So that would be probably a very interesting setup if the Peter has the last name of Peters. So he would be Peter Peters. And then, of course, we can also try the function. And in order to set up the function, we need to go with a property name again, and we just go with a function. Now, this is again going to be the case where you can add a name. So for example, I could say greeting here and then come up with my function. Or since you're already creating a property here, you can just omit it. So maybe just so I don't have the same name, I would say, for example, say hello. That would be an option. But in most cases, you'll probably see where functions are anonymous. Essentially, you don't have a name since you're going to access it using the property anyway. But again, in the object setting, this is a method. Essentially, once you are going to invoke the function, it is going to be a method. Just something to keep in mind. And then in here, for the time being, we're just going to go with console log. And I'm going to say, hello, my name is John, like so. We save it. And then in order to access the properties or invoke the methods, we would need to use a dot notation. So below my object, I'm going to go with a console log, and I'm going to say person.name. And you can probably already guess that in my console, I'm going to have a John. So I can do the same thing with the last name if I want. I can do the same thing with an age and all that. Now, I'm not going to console log each and every property. Hopefully you get the gist. But I would want to show that if we have a siblings, again, same rules apply. If I would want to access Peter Peters, I simply need to say that I'm looking for the item that has the index of 2. And there you go. In the console, I have Peter Peters. Now let's see how we can run our method. And the way that works is we don't have to console log it because I already have the console log in here since the function is not returning anything. And I can simply say person, again, dot, and then I'm looking for the name. And as you can see, the Visual Studio Code nicely suggests greeting. So the only thing I need to do is invoke my method. And there you go, folks. Now, of course, in the console, I have hello, my name is John. Now, similarly, we work with arrays. We can assign the property values to a variable. For example, I could go with age, and that is equal to a person age. And of course, if I would want to console log it, the moment age is going to be 40. So if I'm going to change this around and say 25, of course, in my console, I'm going to have 25. And also I could modify the value. For example, for the name, instead of John, could set it equal to a Bob. How's that going to look like? Well, person.name. So now I'm getting that property. However, I'll set it equal to a new value, and that is going to be Bob. So now in a console, when I'm accessing person.name, of course, I can see Bob. And also, I'd want to quickly mention one thing where starting with ES6, we actually don't need to even have this property over here. How is that going to look like? Well, you could do something like this, where you say greeting, so right away function name, and it's still going to work. Notice all the way in the bottom, I still console log the John. Now, I will repeat this in the ES6 module. I just wanted to let you know right away because you might see already a lot of code where people are using the shorthand where instead of having a property and then set it equal to function, which of course is our method, we can set up our methods this way where I just go with the name for my method and then whatever functionality I have. So in general terms, these are objects in JavaScript where you just need to remember that they are key value pairs. And then in order to access, we use a dot notation. Now, this is one of the ways how we can access it. There's also some other ways, but for the time being, we'll just leave it at that, at the dot notation. And then we can store everything that we have covered so far as the values for our property.